And then look at my notes that are down here. So, just kind of getting started, so bear with me 2 seconds here. Looking for love in all the right places. Anyway, so tell me where you guys are from. We're going to just have a brief conversation today about to belt or not to belt. Fat is the question. There's a very specific reason I said that. So, am I on live now? And all the rest of that was okay. All right, you might want to scoot over unless you want to see your shoulder. We're new at this, and it's fun, and there's a lot to go into this, so bear with us. But the information is golden, so if you can hang in there, I promise you won't be disappointed. Just want to know where people are from. Just kind of slow this down for a second. See if we get a lay of the land. We've got people from India. We've got people from Pakistan. We've got people from Jerusalem. We've got people from Idaho. That's not fair. New York, all over the place. So it's good to know where everyone's coming from. The last week's questions. So if I could get some of the last week's questions, that would be super awesome. Do you happen to have any of those up, Matt, or no? Okay. We're looking to get to. I wanted to satisfy some of the questions that didn't get answered last week. So, and again, like I said, we're new at this. I may just bust out and just give you the goods on what I was going to share, and it'd be more of a monologue, and then we'll continue to accumulate questions, and then get better technical things together as we need them. But so first thing is to belt or not to belt. I don't know if you guys realize. Wait, give us 2 seconds here. I want to take 30 seconds and try to figure out what's going on. So I'm going to consult with my guy here. So okay, is there a way I can see the questions?
Yeah, they're going to be on that blank screen.
Right here? Okay. And who's doing those questions for us? Okay. And then how do we not know where everyone's coming from? Because I'd like to just know who I'm talking to.
Right.
So, okay. Okay, well, anyway, so as we're going here, there's been a huge debate, and I really want to bring this home. There's been a huge debate on whether or not we should belt, and does belting hurt your voice, and are we, is it just a form of shouting? Is that what this is all about? And if that were true, there would be a lot of people with a lot of voices that are losing their voices, and there are a lot of people that are losing their voices. But the more important thing is, how is it possible then that there are a lot of great singers out there? And it could have been Whitney Houston, it could be Aretha Franklin, it could be Jennifer Hudson, it could be Ronnie James Dio, it could be a lot of different walks of life, how they're able to project their voice in a way that sounds like they're shouting. Now, I want to use this word shouting because it's really important. Within what's called SLS, which means speech level singing, and you probably have seen it. If you haven't, it's okay to research it. I'm not saying it's all bad at all. I'm saying that there are certain tenets that they purport that is bad. So it's sort of sing like you speak. Now they've come full circle in this over the last decade, but it's really important to understand that just because something gets popular or there's information out there that everyone gravitates towards, that makes it true and is going to work. Well, turns out it's not true, and let me explain why. There's a term called Broadway Belt, and I'm going to go to the very top. Okay, well, I'm going to get some shout outs here. Jazz, blues, country from Brazil. We got Crazy Dane from Denmark. Good to meet you, Crazy. What are you going to do that's crazy? In fact, I should move closer because, wow, the light looked a lot better when I was up here. I'll get my light. Anyway, we got Crazy Dane TV Hello from Denmark. Astrid Anna Haley from San Diego. Travis from Calgary, Canada. Nice, Travis. Igor from Latvia. Now that's very good, Latvia. I'm glad to have you. Alan from Texas. Hi, y'all. Jacob is the chorus man in the box. This okay. We already got questions coming in. Can't do that yet. Are those questions from last week? Oh, sorry. Okay, I can do that yet. Okay, Jacob Murphys asked if the chorus for Man in the Box is completely chest voice. The answer is absolutely yes, it is. We're going to discuss a way to even identify how you'll know. Okay, so Nikolai said, you haven't made a video specifically on twang yet. Okay, Nikolai, I'm going to answer that question here and now. There is a very big reason I haven't done that. It's not that twang doesn't work. It's that twang accentuates one vowel sound, which is the EH sound. It's pretty easy to get to that sound and make it bright and then feel like you're a rock star because all of a sudden you get some range and power out of it. But the problem is, if you remember, in my course, Ken Tamplin Vocal Academy, all vowel sounds stem from it's the la, ah. And if you can't get the vocal tract to track the ah, and then twang, e, o, u, you're going to have a really tough time singing songs with that sound. You'll forever sentence yourself into twang, into You know, all of a sudden, that one sound becomes everything. Well, no, ah is everything, and we have derivations from that morph and fold into other sounds, ah, e, o, u, and other diphthongs that we have in the English language, up to 26 of them. Some people claim there's over 30 of them, and they might be right. So anyway, specifically on twang yet, how do you go about doing that? Okay, so are there any other specific questions that we have before? Okay, so I'm gonna just move on here. All right, I wanna discuss belting because it's a really misunderstood concept, and different people have different opinions, and I'm just one opinion, so hopefully my opinion will help you. The first thing I want to discuss is where the term came from. And the term came from the Broadway Belt. Okay, belting in Broadway. And it's kind of silly. It was like Bette Midler and, whatever, kind of thing, whatever. And so it coined this phrase, Broadway Belt. Well, actually, it's kind of funny because if you were to think about Pavarotti hitting the high note in Nessun Dorma, the B that he does, that note, that's a belt too. Maybe it wasn't categorized as that, but it is belting. And I want to back this up. I'm going to pull the camera back for a second. There is an idea that we should never be shouty, or we should never sing above how we speak, or if we do, God forbid, we could get ourselves in trouble. Well, that turns out to be very, very, I'm going to say patently false. I'll use that term a lot, but it's not correct. And here's why. Our voice is a group of muscles. And if we know how to train them correctly, the more robust and the more strength that we have in the muscles, the greater we'll have access, to, think about this way. If in the 70s, they used to train runners that were skinny and gaunt because they thought that if they had a lot of muscle mass, then they wouldn't be able to, beat other runners that were more bulky and thick. Well, so that was kind of true how the way people thought about singing also. But now we know that if we have a runner's body, it's those super cut, black buff guys that are out there that are just, and I'm not categorizing it, ethnically categorizing something, but it's usually that way, where they kill it. Now, they don't just kill it in running. They kill it in tennis and soccer and basketball and hockey and so forth. So in other words, if we train this body to perform with a lot of strength and some girth, not a lot, but enough, we're not looking to build a 427 Hemi engine. That's a big American car from the 70s. We're looking to build a Porsche engine that has a lot of this torque and strength and power of a 427 that we can actually put into any style of music and have it excel. And this is really important to understand this concept, because when we get into belting, and I'm going to start to talk about this a bit, and I cover all of this in my singing course. So guys, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to give you the goods to tell you all of the scales it takes and all of the mechanical stuff that has to happen in the body. Get the course. That's what the course is for. I have a lot of tutorials on YouTube where you guys can benefit from a lot of this information. But I want to just dispel rumors, and so I'm going to get back to SLS and coming back to singing as loud as we speak. Last time I checked, if I go, hey, I'm not singing as loud as I speak. However, that was a little deceptive. Let me explain, and I've explained this in other videos before, but I'm going to explain it here now. I didn't scream at you like I'm screaming at a baseball game. Okay? What I did was I actually used a form of compression where I compressed the air and I used my diaphragm. So instead of going, hey, and killing myself, which is what most people do when they belt or they're just singing rock or screaming or whatever, they're destroying and they're taking a flamethrower of air to their vocal folds. And by the way, air, the overuse of air, is the #1 enemy to your vocal folds. Okay, #1. So what I do is I have worked up an amazing vocal tract where I have all of my vowel sounds through what's called open throat technique. And I go, hey! And I can actually, and I don't have to be that distorted on the sound. I could go, hey! And I can be clean on it too, right? But the point is that I built up muscle memory to open up the back of the throat, good strong support, and compress the amount of air that I use. If I overuse my air, I get 3 songs and I'm done, and a pinch and squeeze. Now the danger of this, and I want to start here so we're clear on, it's an extreme sport, so just don't go straight out to do this. But the importance of this is that we build muscle memory first for good open throat technique, good support, and a relaxation response with compression that compresses the air so that we're not overusing the air. Example. Watch this. I'm going to hold my breath right now. Now, by the way, it's going to create the same sensation as when people pinch and squeeze to go up to get a note. I'll sing the same note again. I'll sing it in 2 different ways. I'm going to sing it correctly. Hey! Okay. Now I can control that sound because I'm not killing myself to get the sound. Now let me show you how most people would do it if they didn't understand and have good open throat technique, build the muscle memory, have all these components working for them. They would sing it like this. Hey! All right, that's like, even that hurt. That's like screaming at a baseball game. In fact, did you notice there was like a little tingle sound and even like a right after I did that? Because that sound cannot be sustained. But the other sound can be sustained. Now, it doesn't mean that we always have to be that distorted. Hey, yeah, right? So we can actually control and sustain that sound and have it be clean. Now, here's what's interesting about it, is that, not necessarily in a good way, but I was referred to by some, I'm going to almost call them adversarial vocal coaches that referred to me as the king of belt. Well, actually, I accept that title with a badge of honor. And here's why. Because if we build this runner's body, the strong guy, no matter what style we put him in, no matter what sport we put that guy in, he'll excel. If we have, that's all you're ever going to get out of that guy, right? That's it, an R&B guy. That's what you're going to get. However, if you noticed, Ken Tamplin did the belting thing and came back and did an R&B thing. And I could do a lot of different textures of that. Well, because I built a strong body, I was able to come back and It's just different flavors of how much strength I want to lean into a sound. This is extremely important because the overall health of your voice depends on it. So as you're combing the internet and as you're listening to other vocal coaches and you're listening to how they sing, see how much power they have. See where the power is coming from. Does it sound like it's coming from their core, or is it coming from their throat? And are they able to sustain this over long periods of time? And do they have other students that do this as well? This is so important. I promise you, this is important. So what is belting? Belting is, we discussed last week different registrations. And we talked about the first part, which was the speaking register, and how there is like a clutch that goes from the speaking register into the call register. If you weren't here last week, go back, watch the video. It's important. I don't have time to cover this stuff. But there's a speaking register. And for the male tenor, let me grab my guitar here. We did this before. I want to do this male tenor high bari, and then I want to give you guys some practical notes to work from. So if I'm there as a tenor or a baritone, I'm already feeling the pull of leaving my speaking register into my call register. Now, we already discussed what that was last week, and I'm going to do a brief tutorial now so that we can get this and get through some other stuff I want to go to. But so if I go up the scale, all of a sudden I shift, and I shift into my belting register. Opera won't call it that. It's singing to them, but we identify this in different ways. And the one good thing SLS has done is it's broken down some things, and also there's a lot there in theater and in the German vocal Fox system. They have done a great job categorizing some of this stuff. But we talked about that last week. I want to stay focused on this. So all of a sudden I shifted into a different gear, right? Right? All of a sudden you can hear me. So it's called the call or the belting register for a reason. But we don't just go out and do this. We'll kill ourselves. Straight up. You get 3 songs, 4 songs. Imagine that you're just shouting at a football game. Okay? I control and compress the sound. Let me show you what I mean by that. I'm going to literally hold my breath and show you exactly. And I'm like really crimping off the sound, okay? Right? We got some bad audio or something, or we're cool? All right. I'm distorting, and I'm going to get some better audio equipment. Guys, as you may or may not know, I'm in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico, and my entire studio is now covered in lava. I did get my gear out. It's actually sitting in a storage unit in Orange County, California, next to John Wayne Airport, and I'm going to grab it and then find another location. So if you can put up with the laptop-ishness stuff, that would be cool. And we're going to, even before that, we're going to get some better audio going on and whatnot. But getting back to the belting. So from there, okay, that becomes a little strange, because once you're in your call register, all of a sudden you've ramped up the amount of sound and strength that's required in the body to be able to pull this off. So you'd think that the higher you go, the more strength you have to have. Well, to some degree that's kind of true, but to another degree, did you know that I went through my segundo passaggio where you couldn't hear the break? It was all usable information, and I didn't oversing. I'm not killing myself in the sound. What I'm doing is I go up through the passaggio and I hand it off later in order to be able to sing these notes in a higher registration without going that kind of sound, which will kill me, right? Now I can still lean into that sound for a belting sound. So it's tough to belt in the speaking registration because it's low. We don't really belt there. And as we move up the food chain in our belting register, for you guys out there, it's around here, okay. Ladies, for you, it starts about here. Maybe up to an E, an E5, right? And as we grow this sound, again, as the runner's body, as we really pay attention to this, what you're going to find is with that bright ping. Now, again, if I could have all you shout out to me, all vowel sounds stem from it's the la, ah. The la, ah. Okay? Ah, like the doctor wants to see your tonsils. So as we're going through this, it's ah, right? We want that really bright tone in order to be able to grow the voice. That isn't to say you don't want to be some R&B guy and you just don't want to do that. So you want, hey, 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 and add all that air, and you're fine with that. But I'm telling you, in the long run, if you want to grow, remember, how to belt, or what was it, about being fat, with the slogan for what we just came up with. Remember that if we can continue to grow the strength of this, even all the way up into our upper years, 60s, 70s, 80s, we can maintain a great, robust, powerful sound. Okay, so when we get through the belting register of the chest voice, there's a very sensitive spot, and we know it as the break. I call it the speed bump. Okay, now we can't train to immediately roll through that sucker. We'll get a yodel. We'll never develop that. We have to actually come back and do it really quietly. And again, I have all these exercises and all the different vowel sounds and vowel modifications that are really important to make this work. So let's go higher. We need to grow this really quietly first. And then we start to lean into that sound and create more girth and more strength and more robustness to the sound. And then as we get even better at it, then we want to take our chest voice and hand it off later so we're not dependent on bringing the head voice down so low. Here's why. When the head voice comes down really low, the chest voice goes, oh, I don't have to work so hard at this. I'm just going to be, it's like walking up a hill. I'll just take a taxi. I'll let the head voice do the work for me. Wrong. No, we want to develop both actually, but we don't want to become dependent for the head voice to be pulled all the way down into the chest voice. This is what SLS teaches. This is wrong. Okay? We want to be able to have our strong, robust chest voice go all the way up as high as we can safely with good vowel modifications, good open throat technique, good support, good relaxation response, and then transfer that or hand it off into the head voice as we do our exercises. And what we find is this increases your palate for mixed voice, which we talked about last week. You can have a huge range of how much head or chest you want to have in the sound. So I can go, I can add all that air, and I can have different, amounts of flavor or variations of chest in that sound if this is done correctly. If it's not done with a good chest resonant sound, you can't have those different variations. You get one, you're stuck with one, whatever that was you worked up, okay? Very important. So the other question, this begs the question, can this hurt our voices? Well, yeah, if you do it wrong, anything can hurt your voice. Using too much air in an R&B guy is going to hurt your voice like crazy. So the point is that what we do is we do this, again, I cover this all in my course. It's not just this constant plug for the course. I'm just saying there's a lot of information here I'm not going to be able to cover in an hour or 45 minutes with questions. But I'm showing you that this is true and this is how it's done. And I'm not seeing anyone else out there doing this and talking about this and demonstrating and showing and all the videos that we have to prove that what I'm saying is true. So let's look at this as a controlled shout. As it's lambasted by other SLS guys and other groups that say you should never have any tension, blah, blah, blah. You're shouting at me. Well, it's a controlled shout. It's the amount of compression and air that we use that we've developed good muscle memory for open throat, and then we can compress that energy. Hey! Yay! 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 And by the way, everything doesn't have to be so distorted. It can be yay! 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 Like I can actually control the amount of distortion that goes into the sound, right? I happen to like heavier stuff, but there's something very important. I'm going to make a little side note here. As you train with me, and by the way, we have a singers forums that have, like, Bob, am I right? Like 16,000 guys in there right now. It's a lot. Bob's my assistant, and he'll post the singers forums at the bottom of this so you guys can get in. It's free until you get into the pro levels. But where, you can see a lot of other people that are in the same learning curve and on the same journey as you. Well, so you can have different derivations or levels or flavors of the amount of distortion that you want to use. My recommendation is you don't go straight to heavy. You start off gentle and you lean into it just a little bit, just to get a little tone. And as you sing a lot, you can lean a little more and a little more and a little more. Always come back and clean up the voice. What do I mean by that? That means the very next day, I don't care if you shouted at a football game, sang at the forum. The very next day, you come back with a clean tone. Always a clean tone. We don't practice with a dirty tone. Always with a clean tone. We come back, that nice bright tone. We come back to that, and then we find that our voices go, bam, they're like back in the saddle, and wham, we can hit it again. And the more we do this, and the more we train the voice to do this, the more we realize that we're on to something big, where we can sing things, get range we never knew we had. Very soon I'm going to do a tutorial on the passaggio. So right now we're just going to focus on the range of your chest voice. Can you increase your range? The answer is yes. We're going to have a tutorial on that. And how do we do that safely? My head voice sounds horrible. My falsetto is terrible. I sound like hooty fluty, and how could it possibly match the strength and power of my chest voice? We will cover that. Again, can it hurt our voices? Yes, but if we're doing it correctly, no. Actually, it'll make it much stronger. What are examples of people that belt, or who I should say are examples? Well, there's lots of them. I think that term, again, has been a little muddled. And we have, David Coverdale is a belter. Did he do it right? No, he lost his voice. I love David, but he can't sing now. It's a bummer. Glenn Hughes has found a way to use compression, and he still is kicking major butt this day. But I'm using some rock ice first, and I'll get to some pop. And, Dio was the king, of compression. You have Paul Rogers, phenomenal, just killing it to this day. You've got Mariah Carey, you've got Whitney Houston, you've got Aretha Franklin, my own cousin, Sammy Hagar. Now, he's a street guy, and he was able to do it just by sheer force, let's call it. But he was able to, force his way, like a 427 Hemi, into that sound. Pavarotti, believe it or not, or Placido Domingo, or Mario Lanza, all those guys, when they hit the high C and stuff, that would technically be considered belting if we're honest with ourselves. Okay, so I want to get through a couple things here. The first thing is that what we're building, we're not building an American muscle car. We're building a Porsche with a lot of power. And we're going to go from curve to curve, so that we're not just like mowing through stuff. Okay, this is really important. Now, okay, it looks like, do we need to take a break? It looks like we might need to take a 1 minute break. Okay, hold on, give us 1 minute. We need to take a 1 minute break to get some stuff worked out here, and then I can answer. I want to get back to this idea of muscle car and Porsche and whatnot. It's kind of funny because if you listen to a lot of opera guys, most of them, especially if they're, the guys that sing the big high notes at the end, they're kind of like weightlifters, and they go, right? There's not a lot of swag in it, and I'm not putting them down. Trust me, they're lifting 10,000 pounds. It's the most awesome thing to see, but there's not a lot of agility in the voice. Let me say that again. There's not a lot of agility in the voice. Try to get him to sing a blues lick. Try to get him to sing something soft. Now, this is where I accept the criticism of a lot of coaches that have tried to call me out saying, well, if you do what Ken says, you're just going to be really thick in the throat and you're only going to be able to sing big and loud and you'll never have any sensitivity or genteelness to your voice. Well, that's actually not true. In fact, of the 450 some videos that we have out, look at all the different ways that I've presented how you can do this. Where that becomes true is that if the only way you can get to those notes is by forcing the sound or lifting the weights up and whatever, then that's true. It's tough because you've never come back to release and relax the sound into smaller spaces and have more agility in what it is that you're doing. In fact, I'll bust the opera world on this, and that's that they don't have any agility because of the way that they practice. Now, I cover this in my singing course, but let me explain what I mean. They practice on the dotted line of what I call stair-step scales. So they go, la, la, right? And they'll do this thing, and they'll have no swag in it. So there's no portamento, no sine wave instead of a square wave, a sine wave. So if you ever hear them sing a blues lick, like the one I sang earlier today, it would be instead of they don't have any swag to the sound because they've notched into their vocal cords a specific way that the chords have to respond because of how they've trained. We don't want to train like that. Trust me, we don't want to train like that. Now, there's a lot of tenets to bel canto, so trust me, that are great. So I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying there's elements, which the other elements, as we discussed last week, are the vowels themselves, where you only get 5 vowel sounds. Ah, and so imagine, and they're really covered. Well, apply that to contemporary music, guys, and I'm not sure you're going to have a hit. So we have to modify this stuff in ways that make sense. And there's really cool ways that we're going to continue with these sessions. I cover all this in my course. Okay, so am I looking to answer questions, or can I continue with what I'm saying? Because I want to finish. Okay, so I got a good team here, and they're helping me. But I told you the overuse of air was the enemy to the voice. It's important to build good open throat muscle memory correctly because it's the same sensation as when we choke and squeeze off a note when we go up. We have to build the open throat first, strengthen the body, compress the air, and then we build resonance, and that does our work for us rather than killing ourselves screaming. Told you about the singers forums, 16,000 people in there. Go in there and check it out. There's a lot of like-minded people like you that just want to learn how to sing. When I can't do this today, but I want to discuss belting through the passaggio into the head voice, because if I go and I'm starting to kill it, lean into a sound, right? We have to be able to control that through the passaggio first, know where we're handing off the chest voice from chest to head, and then be able to lean into the head voice that we built up. We'll do a whole series on head voice. And in my course, I have like a giant thing on how to build head voice so that we can grow our head voice to sound and match the exact tones of our chest voice so it just sounds like one long, powerful note. Now, consonants matter. So consonants close the throat down and they create glottal stops. So it's hard to be able to get past those. So we cover that. We cover all kinds of different forms of compression. So all right, I'll take a few questions here. Question after content. Marge Laurie, sir, I want to belt. Is there something in my throat like a phlegm? I think you mean phlegm. I'm from the Philippines. I hope you can help me. Okay, well, that's a different issue altogether. That could be sinus related. That could be acid reflux related. That could be allergy related. You could have just been coming off of a cold. I don't know how consistent that is. Do you drink dairy products that maybe contribute to that? So there's health issues and lots of things like that. So I want to make sure that you understand. I have several videos on this. So Bob, if you want, and to put my videos on, how to maintain good vocal health and whatnot in the description tag to help Marge Laurie or Lar, that would be great. The next one is Leaf Evans. Building a Welshman's voice is very choral and melodic, which is my language, but every time I open up and try to belt, it seems my throat closes, it hurts. Why? Okay, that's exactly what I said. By the way, that's pretty cool. What a great question, dude, because we don't get questions like that often. And within the chorale, there is the concept of blending, and you don't want to stand out unless you're the soloist. So you use a lot of air, and you sing kind of like Paul McCartney with a real lyric tenor sort of gentleness in the sound. That's all you'll ever get. That's all you'll ever get out of your sound. If that's how you work your sound, you've built an engine, you've put it on a motorcycle or an ATV, definitely not on a Porsche or a Ferrari or a big muscle car, but that sound itself stays in a blended, very nondescript kind of way where it just, is very bland, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's meant bland to blend. It's meant for that. What you want to do is to get into the bright ping of the sound that we've been talking about with that bright ah, and grow that first, and then you can come back and get to this sound. If you don't, you're not going to be able to belt because you haven't built up the belting mechanism for this. Okay, next question. What do we got? And before we get to this question, another question, I want to add that, all right, well, we've got to come on, but I want to add that just because we get a bright ping in the sound doesn't mean we're doing it correctly either. There's something called vowel modifications. And we have to modify the vowels as we ascend and descend or go up and down a passage. So if we try to take a vowel that's really big on the bottom, and it becomes too big and it splats, or becomes top heavy, we can't sustain that. It's not tenable. So go, la, ah, and oo is how I went up with mask. And we're actually going to do a whole tutorial on mask also. Again, all the way expanded versions of this is in my singing course. But I'm just I'm pointing out things to you that I'm not seeing the amount of credible information I'd like to see on the internet. So I'm just trying to give you the skinny on what's going on. So we close down those sounds so that we compress them. So 1 minute we're playing regular golf, and as we go up really, really high, we're kind of playing miniature golf, because we don't want those sounds to get too big and get far away from us. But the resonance is still there. No one knows you're doing this. And it's in the face, and it's powerful as it comes, but the freedom that you get is insane. Okay, so that next question is how to make our head voice as powered as our belting. Okay, I'm going to do a video on head voice. Hang in there. Like I said, it's in our course. I do have a video on head voice on YouTube if you want to check it out. It's a good starting point. We'll resume covering that as we cover the video on head voice. Hummus Womack from Good, Virginia. How do you get that kind of power without damaging your vocal cords? Well, it's what I said. Resonance is what's doing the trick. So I think last week I hit I was singing the E vowel, and I sang a note, and I wanted to prove something to you up really high, for example, since this will help you with your head voice question too. If I go, like, I can lean into that sound because I built resonance into that sound. I've worked on it. There's a specific way to do it. I cover this in my course. What you want is you want to build this resonance to the point where you're not going, hey! And killing yourself. You're rolling into the sound, and then all of a sudden, the resonance does the work for you because you were a runner and you built up, remember the runner's body, like we talked about at the beginning, you built up that muscle memory in a way that works for you. Okay, Phantom Film Bluff. I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts on Adam Pascal's? He's one of my favorite singers on Broadway performers. Okay, so there's two parts to this. He's great for what he does. If you want, can you send us a private message on that? Because I don't think everybody wants to hear this. And if you do, guys, speak up. But there's a lot within Broadway. Let me just say this, and don't be mad at me for saying it. Within Broadway, there's an overuse of enunciation. And it's not their fault. The reason is because early on in Broadway, they wanted someone in the very back of the row to hear all the words that were being said. Okay, this was true for opera really early on, and it changed a lot to where they didn't even care they just wanted you to know the story, get the feeling. Okay, they're crying, they're hugging, they're kissing, they're singing to each other. The overuse of the vocal tract, meaning that the vocal tract, e, o, u, your throat, when it shifts really big, then it's much harder to get to a lot of our vowel sounds in a way that we want to control the vocal tract. And so maybe what I should do is a whole thing on Broadway to show the good side of why that works for Broadway, and then the other side of why you can go a lot farther with the sound without overusing the vocal tract. Hopefully that answers your question. Bob, can you remind me of that so that I can remember to address that a much more expansive way? Joshua Hart, is there a way to delay your break, speed bump, and still have a smooth transition? Yeah, I do it all the time. In fact, so what I encourage, it says my voice seems too top heavy if I delay the flip, or my break is pretty much set in the chest. And when your chest is my break pretty much set when your chest is worked up. Yeah, so like I said, remember I said we do it really soft first and we start really low in our registration, and little by little we raise it, and then add more volume and more strength to the sound. If you don't do that, you never grow it. So you have to do this, but then ultimately we do want to hand it off as late as possible. If we're singing something heavy, if we're doing some low R&B thing, we could do it lower, that's fine. But at least you know where it is and what you're capable of doing. But yes, we grow the chest, we grow the head, then we come way back, very diminuendo, or very small on the sound, and we work the passaggio segundo passaggio ever so gently, and then we a little bit more lean into the sound, means more volume. And then after we get that sound past the speed bump where we don't hear it, then we start to grow the chest higher into the passaggio to hand it off later to get that kind of strength and power. Next one. Is there any other questions here? Because I'm going to close with two things. The first thing I want to talk about is why I'm doing this. In fact, I'll just tell you why right now. We get so many questions, and I used to do a lot of webinars, and I've increasingly been disappointed with seeing some of the fancy advertising of so many vocal coaches out there, and guys that come out of nowhere that think they know everything, and they've never. And I'm watching these guys, and the funny thing is none of them have any actual vocal credits. They don't post any tours. They don't post any albums they've done. They don't post any songs they placed in film and television. Some of them claim they teach all these people, blah, blah, blah. And then they never really sing like full songs, or they sing a ditty here and there, whatever. And even some of them that do, they're really one-dimensional. Or they'll be in these conferences with all these big people, whoa, whoa, which you find out is actually a sales conference on how to sell online marketing. I mean, this goes on and on and on and on. So I decided to just take it to the streets and talk to you guys directly and say, hey, I don't claim to be God of voice. What I do claim is that I've spent about $1 million on my voice, 35 years of study. Look at my IMDb, which is the Internet Movie Database. Look at my Wikipedia. Look at all the albums I have up. So when you see someone that's grandpa's been doing this a long time, I can identify a lot of things I know that I call BS. And I know that it's a sales tactic, and it's frustrating. That was the first thing. The second thing is that one of my favorite things, truly, is the feedback that I get from you guys of when I see this work, and all of a sudden it makes the whole thing worth it to me. It's like it's kind of like having your kid do something that is, he hits a home run and you go, yes, that's awesome, right? So when I get that feedback and I see you guys, and not everybody's on the same journey. Somebody just wants to sing at a wedding or a bar mitzvah. Some guy wants to be a rock star, and everything in between. I still am happy when I see someone achieve their goal and they demonstrably have improved. Well, how awesome is that? It just proves that the proof is in the singing, and Ken Tamplin Vocal Academy, where the proof is in the singing. Okay, a dang prastiwi. Is it true that we can not do belting while we do riffs? Absolutely false. I'm not sure where you got that. I put, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so that's belting doing a riff. So I don't know where you got that, but that's just not true. Taeyan Bartz. Are the protruding veins in the neck a sign of tension? How to avoid this? Okay, a good question. Great question. Yes and no. Okay, sometimes you're on stage and go, hey, yeah! And I'm in the moment and I'm just having fun, And does it mean that I'm singing incorrectly? Maybe, maybe not. But what it does mean, though, is that I love using this example in sports because it's really true. And I just love I'm a soccer guy. I love football, F-U-T-B-O-L. And Lionel Messi's one of my favorite players. Now, I have a lot of, who doesn't love the Brazilian players? And, but one of my favorite players, and I love his story, how he got to where he got. And I've heard him talk about this. And when it's said that when he receives a ball and he's going to goal, is he stressed? And he come out and said, I am stressed beyond belief. I am like, you couldn't pressure the body to have more stress to get to goal, okay? Now, I'm sure this is true for a lot of other soccer players. I'm just using him as an example. But what he said was that he learned to manage away that stress so that he could stay focused on the technique that he learned to take on players, either release the ball, go to space, retrieve the ball, and shoot, or whatever he's got to do. And in addition to that, even if he does something where he goes overboard and he stresses himself out a little too much, he just stands over there and lets his heart rate come down, because he's that good at it, and then he comes back again and then does it again because he has conditioned his body to do this. So even if sometimes you see somebody, even me or whatever, where you see some veins in the neck, we've conditioned our bodies in such a way that as stressed as we are going to goal, we immediately can come back, stand there for a minute, get the heart rate down, receive the ball, go back to goal. And it's very important to understand that. Let's see here. Prakul Sisadoia. Sorry, guys, these names are awesome, but I'm having a tough time pronouncing. Is there any difference between diaphragmatic and stomach breathing? Okay, there is a huge difference. Bob, should we just do a whole thing on diaphragmatic support so we can answer this question? Probably. We should. By the way, Bob's my assistant on the other end here. First of all, let's discuss this. There are two diaphragms. Okay, so when you say diaphragmatic support, I love how people parrot stuff on the internet. They just say stuff. You should have diaphragmatic support. What does that mean? Okay, let me show you what I mean by this. Okay, our diaphragm, our second diaphragm, sits directly under the rib cage. When we take a breath in from our lung and we go, it actually contracts like a crescent moon in this direction. However, when most people breathe, they breathe like this. They huff. They go. So this diaphragm is kind of like barely doing anything. Okay? Now, we have intercostal muscles in the lung. If we can maintain about half to 3/4 of air in the lung. Then when we use the diaphragm, like this, watch my stomach. Now, is that belly breathing? Well, it's part of belly breathing, but there's more. Hold on. So the second thing is, not to gross you out, and I won't promise not to give you any goodies here. Down around here, our lower groin hairline, there's a second diaphragm. And most of what Apagio opera teaches is to develop this first, and I'm going to explain this why in a second. When you take the breath, did you notice I didn't bring the whole cavity in? Just lower. Now, there's two reasons for that. The first reason is that when we try to breathe from our upper diaphragm, it's so closely related to the way we take a breath from our chest that we can't separate it. So because we can't separate it, we can't really use it. We think we're using it. So I watch these guys on the internet. I am not kidding you. And one sweet, loving African-American gentleman who has a lot of hits, shows diaphragmatic breathing. But what's interesting is when he goes to sing, you can clearly hear he has no support. So just because we go through the motion of this, right? Well, we're talking about belting. What we should have is this. Hey! 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 Now, when we combine the whole abdominal cavity with the upper diaphragm and the lower diaphragm and the transverse abdominis muscle that goes through the whole body down through the back and the sciatica, maintaining lung or support in lung, meaning air in the lung, we get what's called a snap of air. Let me grab my guitar here real quick. We've done this before. I'll do it again. If I take a breath from my lung, it's this much snap of air. So you'd be like, hey, 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 hey. It's that much. If I do it with the whole abdominal cavity, including belly breathing, including transverse abdominis, both diaphragms, etc., and there's a lot more muscle structure. There's like 16 muscle structures that go through this. I'm not going to explain this all right now, guys. I'm just getting to your question, trying to do the best I can to answer it. But if we do this with vacuum in the lung, when the crescent of the diaphragm contracts like this and builds a vacuum into the lung, we get hey, 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 hey. Powerful, powerful stuff. Now, it turns out that this explosion of air that is controlled in the glottis, which we've talked about glottal compression, can be dangerous. And again, I cover all this in my singing course, but it's important stuff. It can be dangerous because it can have an overuse of air that gets to the glottis, and now we're overusing it. So let's say some guy from the street figured this out. He didn't know anything about technique, and he's going, hey, baby! Don't steal my car! Or, go Lakers! Right? All of a sudden, he's taking a flamethrower of air to his vocal folds, his glottis, and what's happening is that he's using that technique, but he doesn't understand the open throat technique, the relaxation response, the vowel modifications, and the compression of air. So all of these things work together in concert to be able to do these things correctly, and then not oversing, not overuse the air, and understand how this works. Okay, guys, I'm taking one more question. It says, rock and roll. Okay, when I try to belt, and since more dynamic songs, it sounds quite nice. But when I try to sing something peaceful, it sounds like I'm bored on the recording. Any tips? Yeah, that's another really good question. I have had to deal with that for a long period of time, and here's an answer, not the answer to it. An answer is that first we have to build enough quality character in our voice to make it be interesting. So if we haven't done that yet, and again, I don't know how long you've been singing, but if we haven't done that yet, then it just sounds bland and boring. But once we've determined a certain amount of that kind of sound in the voice, because of belting, because of working the voice, then as we come back, we add a little air, we get a little sexy on the sound, then it's not so bad. And then we learn and we say, okay, well, I can lean into this a little bit more. I can add a little more air here. I can, have kind of like a little bit of whiskiness to the sound, some smoky, woodsy flavor, and that helps us a lot. If we don't practice that, we'll never get it. So continue to do that. Continue to grow your upper mid voice, belting mid voice, and then you can come back and get this. Okay, guys, I hope this information was helpful. It was a great session. We're going to do this again every Wednesday and every Saturday. Same bat time, same bat channel. I'm going to continue to try to answer questions on the next week for ones I didn't miss the week before or day before. One more question. Am I supposed to answer this? All right, I guess I get one more question. I heard you sing low rider, awesome. Was wondering, I'm a baritone, but I can only sing low. I'd like to expand my range lower as well as high notes. Can the voice be trained to sing lower? Absolutely. Do it all the time. It's called the lower laryngeal position, taking the larynx and dropping it and coming way down and scooping. I cover some of that in that video, and maybe I can try to do a session on that. It won't be a whole hour, but maybe a 15, 20-minute session on it. And I also cover this in my singing course. Now, a caveat to that, and this is important for all you singers out there, and you're going to notice this, I have something called little boy voice. That's my last question, guys, so don't give me any more. I have something I call little boy voice. And little boy voice is that as we train the voice to go higher and higher through vowel modifications and good vocal tract shaping and all the stuff we talked about, there's a tendency for the voice to get smaller, like Michael Jackson. Hey, how y'all doing out there? I'm doing good, you're doing good. And it'll sound like you just took a hit of helium or something, and the placement will be really high. Well, and it takes about 2 hours for the voice to set, to go down and get your low notes. So some of you might be a little bummed going, well, gosh, that's weird. I can now sing really high, but I feel like I lost my lower register. Trust me, you didn't lose your lower register. Come back tomorrow morning, your lower register will be there. Or train the lower laryngeal position to come down and settle into the voice and drop the voice down into your lower larynx. I do it all the time. In fact, when I did the Johnny Cash song that's on YouTube right now, I had actually just come off of singing a Chris Cornell song. Same day. Really high range one thing, lower the next. Now, it wasn't as low as I would have liked it. It wasn't as cool as lowrider. And it shows, too, how the voice settles or sets, and we're able to get that. And then we can go down and get more lower baritone range stuff. Thank you for joining us today, guys. God bless you. Ken Temple Vocal Academy with the Proofs in Singing. Again, check out our singers forums. Check out my singing course called How to Sing Better Than Anyone Else. I answer all of this with like 70 hours of material with the pro course. So it's crazy worth it. It's like it's over $100 less than 1 hour of my time for one-on-one instruction like I'm giving you today. All right, God bless. Peace out.